there's only one way to be a successful refugee, right? Or to be accepted into the community, and that's like being a professional or meeting milestones. And for those of us like myself who struggle to hold down a job or are just trying to learn about themselves or trying to, find their place in this community, our stories are not shared. It's hard because I feel like there's my community who I get why they want this, but they want a positive image, right? We've got to be assimilated, we've got to be always thankful, we've got to be accomplished, it's not enough to just exist. There's that expectation that we have to be great, or our parents' struggle wasn't worth it. Like the struggles of being on Centrelink, or the struggles of demanding improvements in public housing, or just how hard it was for me to finish university, or the way my mental health and racism and white supremacy, all those, isms, the way they affect my capacity and the way they affect my ability to accomplish things. And there were a lot of things that I didn't pursue because I think now it's a bit different, but growing up, we never had, we weren't exposed to successful migrants or successful people of color. I'm sure there were people accomplishing great things, but they weren't visible. You always felt like you were the first to do stuff, so the first to graduate, first to go to university. And I feel like for me, there were always roadblocks. There were always things that I didn't pursue because I thought I'm not good enough, or I thought, what are the chances that they're going to hire an African Muslim? I think I've struggled with acceptance because not being accepted by the wider society has really made me internalize that, and it's made me very insecure about my abilities. And even though I have friends who are like, oh, you've done this, you've done that, there's still that part of me that just doesn't feel like she's good enough. Self-love. I struggle with self-love. I struggle with being enough. I'm in a much better place now, but I think being a child and not having anyone really put things into perspective, right? So put racism into perspective, put being Muslim into perspective. I never had anyone that I could chat to about that, and it's made me internalize the things that I'm trying to fight. So even though there's a part of me that is you're good enough, you deserve all the good things that are happening to you, there's a part of me that's still but am I really good enough? Or it's really hard to believe in myself because I'm constantly fighting to prove myself. And I think being a refugee, I think that part of the refugee story needs to be told, the bit about insecurities, the bit about struggling and accepting that you're not okay. Okay, so my name's Ayan. I came to Australia in 1992 with my family. I've lived in Australia for 24 years now, I think. When I first came to Australia, it felt like we were the only ones here because it was my family and a few maybe relatives. So it really felt isolated. And then I went to a Muslim school when I was in grade 3, and I met other people from my community, other Somalis, and that was really helpful. Just meeting other people who could speak the same language. The idiosyncrasies were there. There were things that I didn't need to explain. But there was also a lot of racism as well. It was really hard trying to explain that to my family because we're Muslims and racism is not supposed to exist, right? We don't believe in racism, yet we're people as well and we're imperfect, and racism has a way of, racism doesn't care about religion or anything like that, right? There were a lot of kids who they didn't bully me, but they isolated me and my friends, right? They didn't see us as authentic Muslims because of the history of Islam in Africa and the whole slavery thing. So it never felt like they saw us as organically Muslim. So a lot of the times we felt like we were on the margins. And I remember in year 7, a teacher actually called me and my friends into the staff room and was like, when you kids get together, you're very loud, you're very boisterous, and you're distracting the students. So I was like, all right, cool. And then he said, we should separate you while we're in class. So I was like, oh, I mean, it is what it is. But then he extended it to, when you're out on the playground, I don't think you should hang out together. So I left that school and I went to a public school, and there weren't that many Muslims. And it was such a huge change for me, because I grew up, like everyone, all the girls wore hijabs and we had the same beliefs. And then going to a new school, that's hard enough. But then going to a school where you're starting from scratch, and also there's none of that community, right? So I didn't handle it well. I stopped attending school. My mom didn't get it. She didn't get why I didn't want to go to school, but then she understood something had changed. I wasn't the same person. I wasn't the same vibrant, jokey person that I once was, and I never wanted to leave my house. And for me to stay home 2 days in a row, let alone months, that was like a huge shock for my mother. I was a mess, so I was in a really bad place, and I never realized just how bad until I entered my early 20s, and looking back on it, it was really horrible. Like, I took my anger out on my family, and I didn't have the words to express what I was going through. I didn't have the words to talk about depression. And my mum didn't take it too well. It was hard for her because she's a single mother, and she was working full time, and my sisters are younger than me, so they didn't have the words, or they didn't have the intellect to support me or give me the support that I need, or at least direct me towards seeking help. Now I realize I only have myself. Like right now where I'm at in life, I'm there because I depended on myself, and I've got amazing sisters and they're so supportive. And they've seen the changes. They say they've forgiven me, and they're like, oh, you know, you were unwell then, so it's okay. But it's hard to forgive yourself knowing you did that to people you supposedly care about. And, oof, sorry. My mom, she's got a survival mentality. So for her, it's what do I do next? You know, get a job, done. Put my kids in school, done. So for her, she wanted me to kind of do the same thing, and I just didn't have it in me. And whenever things got hard, I fled. And only recently, I've had to like confront my fears of failure, confront my fears of not being perfect. I don't think I've realized just how much of an impact racism had on me until I started studying racism. And it's annoying because I've got to always study about racism because I've got to study about how to survive. And it's exhausting because there's just so much things I've got to think about. I've got to think about my gender, I've got to think about racism, and that takes up so much of my time, and I can't just enjoy reading, I can't enjoy taking a walk because I'm constantly overanalyzing. And I think that's what racism has done. It's made me second guess who I am and constantly guess my abilities. My generation, it's very much you're successful doing what you want to do. And our generation, we've got social media to like speak back, and a lot of us use it to vent at what the government is doing and vent at racism. And my mother and some other relatives who I have on my social media have had chats with me where they're like, you know, you sound ungrateful, or, you know, don't you know what Australia has done for you? And I get why they're saying that, because for them, it's all about surviving. They've gone through so much trauma, and they're trying to survive by getting on with life. Where I feel like because I've grown up here, I know what my rights are. I feel more certain, and I have the luxury to speak out where they might not have had it. I want people like me who are out there, who are watching this, and they can relate to my story and they can relate to my struggle. You know, I want them to know that it's going to be okay, because that's how I get through the day. And I think we need to tell that story, because there are a lot of people out there who are like me, who struggle, whether it's mental health, whether it's loving who they are, or those stories need to be told, because it'll help with the healing process. Because if you know you're not alone, if you know that you're not the only person going through this, then you know your feelings and your concerns are valid. I'm proud of the person that I am. I'm proud that I'm a kind person. I'm proud that I'm someone who's there for my friends. I'm proud that I am still here when there were moments that I didn't want to be here. I'm just proud to still be alive. Yeah.